You don't have to make bad choices to stay broke. You just have to make no choices at all. Drift through life. Avoid learning. Leave your money untrained, your habits unmanaged, and your mindset unchallenged, and you'll find yourself trapped in the same cycle year after year. Not because life is unfair, but because you never sat down and made a new plan. The most expensive thing in the world isn't failure, it's financial ignorance. You see, failure you can recover from. You learn, you adjust, you try again. But ignorance, that's different. It costs you silently, slowly. It drains your years, steals your opportunities, and you don't even hear it walking out the door. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. Because if you don't design your own life plan, chances are, I promise you, you'll fall into someone else's plan. And guess what they've got planned for you? Not much. Most people don't realize this. Wealth is not about income. Wealth is a philosophy, a mindset. It's how you think about money that determines whether you build freedom or just build more stress on a bigger paycheck. You can earn 6 figures and stay stuck in scarcity. Or you can earn modestly but think richly and start building something extraordinary. And remember this, you don't have to change your whole life today, but you do have to change your direction. The road to wealth doesn't start with luck or a raise, it starts with a decision. Let's begin. I often say, money is not a measure of time, it's a mirror of value. If that sounds strange, sit with it for a moment. Most people grow up being taught to trade time for money. An hour of labor for a wage, 40 hours a week for a paycheck. And while that's where we all begin, let me tell you, it's not where you have to end up. Because if you want to build wealth, real wealth, you've got to stop asking, how long must I work? And start asking, how much value can I bring to the table? The wealthy have long understood a simple truth. The marketplace doesn't pay you for your time, it pays you for your value. Now, time is important, yes, but only if it's filled with something the market wants. Think about this. There are people who make $15 an hour, and there are people who make $15,000 an hour. What's the difference? Are they using different clocks? Number? One just figured out how to bring more value into the same time. That's the shift in thinking I want you to make today. Years ago, when I was just starting out, I used to work long hours, grueling hours, and yet I remained broke. Then my mentor asked me a question that changed my life. He said, are you being paid for your time or for the value you bring to that time? And I had no answer because I had never thought about it. That's when he told me, if you want to earn more, you must become more. You see, wealth doesn't show up because you clock in and out it shows up. When you develop yourself to a point where your skills, your ideas, your presence, your value is worth something to others. So what do we do with that truth? We build, we learn, we grow, we read, we refine, we create, we find ways to solve problems better, faster, with more insight. We become people of substance, people of contribution. That's when the game changes. Suddenly, money begins to chase you, instead of you forever chasing it. People will pay for solutions, not hours. People invest in value, not effort. So if you're stuck, working hard and getting nowhere, ask yourself, how can I increase my value? Not to your boss, but to the world. That's the only economy that matters. Stop measuring your worth by the hours on a clock. Start measuring it by the difference you make. Because at the end of the day, money is not the reward for working harder, it's the reward for becoming more valuable. Let me tell you something I learned early. Money has a strange relationship with clarity. It's attracted to it. It's magnetized by it. And it runs away from confusion. Most people want to be wealthy, they want to be free, they want to live well, but when you ask them what that actually means, they freeze. I just want more. More what? More money? More peace? More shoes? More security? You see, confused goals create confused results. The people I've seen build true wealth don't just have vague wishes floating around in their heads. They have specific, written down, measurable targets. Their goals are clean, precise. They know what they're working toward, and they know what it's going to take to get there. That's not just ambition, that's strategy. That's mental discipline. Let me give you an example. A man once came up to me after a seminar and said, "Jim, I want to be rich." I said, "Great. How rich?" He paused. "You know, just rich." I said, "That's your problem. Rich is not a number. It's not a goal. It's a fantasy." I told him, "You can't hit a target you haven't defined." That's when I challenged him. Write down exactly what financial freedom looks like to you. How much money coming in? From where? By when? What would you need to do each month to get there? That was the beginning of his clarity. And within 3 years, he had created 2 income streams from a small online business and 1 from real estate. And he was bringing in just over $200,000 a year. Why? Not because he wanted it, because he named it, because he planned it, because he executed on it. You don't build a house by wishing for walls. You get a blueprint, you measure, you calculate, and then you build. Your financial life is no different. So if you find yourself financially stuck, overwhelmed, or confused, look first at your goal. Are they written? Are they specific? Can you track them? Can you wake up each morning and say, "Here's what I'm working toward"? If not, no wonder the money isn't showing up. It doesn't know where to go. Money respects structure. It rewards direction. It multiplies under guidance. But when your intentions are fuzzy, scattered, emotional money disappears. Because money is not emotional. It's logical. It's a tool, and it waits to be led. The question is, have you told it where to go? Because wealth isn't built on general hopes, it's built on clear intention. You know, people often ask me, how do I grow financially? And I tell them, that's the wrong question. Because before you ever grow your bank account, you've got to grow you. Financial growth is always preceded by personal growth. If you want to have more, you have to become more. Not just know more, become more. Let me share with you something from my own life. Early on, I was broke. Not just financially broke, but mentally poor. I was blaming circumstances, pointing fingers, waiting for the economy, waiting for the government, waiting for someone to come and fix it. But one day I heard the truth, and it hit me like a lightning bolt. Your income will rarely exceed your level of personal development. And that was the wake-up call I needed. I didn't need to wait for opportunity. I needed to become the kind of person opportunity was looking for. So I began reading. I began listening. I started writing things down. I started small, 1 book, 1 idea, 1 new habit. And with every step I took toward growth, my thinking changed. And when your thinking changes, your decisions change. And when your decisions change, your life changes. That's the real sequence. Most people are trying to change their life from the outside, change the job, change the salary, change the environment. But nothing sticks until you change. Because who you are determines what you do. And what you do determines what you get. Think of it like this. Imagine a farmer standing in a field yelling at the soil, "Give me a harvest, then I'll plant the seed." We'd laugh. But that's how most people treat success. They want the rewards without doing the internal work. They want abundance without discipline, freedom without structure, wealth without wisdom. It doesn't work like that. The soil gives to the planter, not the demander. So what's the answer? Grow, stretch, learn, refine your skills, invest in your mindset, practice gratitude, increase your emotional intelligence, strengthen your discipline. You don't attract wealth by accident or luck. You attract it by becoming the kind of person who can manage and multiply it, someone who's not just hoping for a raise, but is becoming too valuable to ignore. Not just wishing for more income, but becoming a better steward of what you already have. And here's the best part, growth is free. You can start at any time. All it takes is a decision. So if you really want more in your life, don't just chase money, chase mastery. Don't just wish for change, build the capacity to handle it. Because your outer world will never grow beyond the limits of your inner world. One of the greatest shifts that happened in my life, and I mean one of those turning point moments, was the realization that money shouldn't just be earned. It should be managed, multiplied, made to work. Most people spend their entire lives in the grind of earning, spending, and repeating, thinking that if they just work harder, they'll eventually get ahead. But that's not how wealth is built. That's how exhaustion is built. The wealthy figured out something different. They don't just work for money, they put money to work for them. Now let me be clear. There's nothing wrong with hard work. I worked hard on the farm, in the factory, and in business. But I learned that hard work alone is not the key to wealth. If it were, every laborer would be rich. No, the real secret is leverage. You see, money is a tool, and like any tool, it can do the work while you rest, but only if you learn how to use it. Most people let their money sit idle, unemployed, or worse, they let it escape their hands as fast as it enters. They don't give it a job, they don't train it, and they certainly don't tell it where to go. You've got to start thinking like a CEO, not a worker. Imagine every dollar you earn as an employee. Are you sending that employee out to produce more, or are you handing it over to entertainment, interest payments, and impulse buys? Because make no mistake, your money is either building your future or it's building someone else's. That's why financial literacy is essential. You don't need a PhD in economics, but you do need a philosophy. You do need a plan. That's where freedom starts. When I finally began investing in simple things at first, like savings accounts, then mutual funds, real estate, and even my own skill set, I saw something change. Not just in my bank balance, but in my thinking. I stopped seeing every dollar as something to spend and started seeing it as something to deploy. And that shift created momentum. Suddenly, I wasn't just surviving off the sweat of my brow, I was building something bigger than my effort. I was building systems, income streams, stability, and let me tell you, there is no feeling like watching your money produce more money. It's not magic, it's wisdom. It's not luck, it's design. If you can earn money, you can invest it. If you can invest it, you can grow it. And if you grow it, you can step off the hamster wheel and start walking in freedom. Because true wealth doesn't come from trading hours for dollars, it comes from learning how to make every dollar work while you rest. One of the hardest lessons I ever had to learn, and maybe one of the most valuable, is that most people make emotional decisions with financial consequences, and then they wonder why they can never get ahead. I've seen it happen over and over again. A man makes a little money, feels invincible, and spends it all by Friday night. Another sees the market dip, panics, sells everything at a loss, and locks in his own failure. A woman gets her paycheck, feels deprived, and treats herself to something shiny instead of planting seeds for her future. That's not discipline, that's reaction. And reactions are expensive. The wealthy learn to pause, to breathe, to respond. That's the key difference. Where most people panic, the wealthy pause. Where most people react to the moment, the successful return to the plan. They don't let fear drive the steering wheel. They let principle do that. Let me tell you, I've had my share of emotional decisions and they rarely paid off. I remember once investing in something I didn't understand just because a friend was excited about it. No research, no logic, just hype and pressure. I lost thousands, not because the investment was bad, but because my decision was emotional. And emotional decisions are almost always expensive. But when I learned to step back, to think through my values, my goals, and my plan, that's when my finances stabilized. I stopped reacting to the economy, to what others were doing, to the latest trends. I started acting based on principle. And the difference was night and day. The market doesn't reward emotion, it rewards discipline. Calm minds build capital. If you want your money to grow, you have to master your emotions before they master your wallet. That means no more panic selling, no more revenge spending, no more buying because you're bored or stressed or trying to impress people who don't even notice. Instead, build a system, build principles. Know why you're saving, why you're investing, why you're saying no today so you can say yes later. And when the pressure comes, and it will, don't reach for your wallet to solve an emotional problem. Reach for your discipline. Because in the end, your wealth won't be determined by your feelings, it'll be determined by your decisions. And the strongest decisions are never made in panic, they're made in principle. You don't see what you're not trained to see. Let that idea sink in for a moment. Because it's not just a clever phrase, it's a mirror. See, the truth is, opportunities are everywhere. Every street, every headline, every conversation is filled with little golden doors waiting to be opened. But you got to have the eyes to see them, the ears to recognize them, and the mind to evaluate them. And that comes from one thing, education. Not just formal education. No, I'm talking about financial education, self-education, the kind you pursue, not the kind that's handed to you with a certificate. The financially illiterate walk past wealth every single day and they don't even know it. They see problems instead of possibilities. They see cost instead of value. They hear investment and think risk. They hear saving and think deprivation. Not because they're lazy or unmotivated, simply because no one ever taught them how to think about money the right way. Now let me tell you how I learned this. Early in my journey, I was broke. Not just financially, mentally. I didn't know how money worked. I didn't know what assets were. I thought saving was something you did if you had something left, which I never did. And then someone handed me a book. That book opened my mind to an entirely different language, the language of wealth. It taught me that if I could understand the rules, I could play the game. And if I could play the game, I could win. From that day on, I made a commitment. Every week without fail, I would read one thing about money, one chapter, one article, one lesson. And with every page, I became sharper. Suddenly, I started seeing things differently. Where others saw a side hustle, I saw a business. Where others saw a discount, I saw an investment opportunity. Where others saw bills, I saw patterns. That's the power of literacy. It sharpens your lens. Financial education isn't a luxury, it's a survival skill. It's not for the rich, it's what makes you rich. And the good news, you don't have to go to Harvard to get it. The resources are everywhere now. Books, podcasts, courses, mentors, most of them free or low cost. The question isn't availability, it's willingness. So if you want to start seeing the same world differently, if you want to stop walking past opportunity and start grabbing it, commit today. One financial lesson every week. Just one. Stack those lessons and you'll change your vision. Change your vision and you'll change your future. Because the doorway to wealth doesn't open with luck. It opens with understanding. Let me tell you something I learned early on in life. Being broke is a condition, but being poor, that's a mindset. And those two things are miles apart. I've been broke. I've had pockets so empty that even air didn't want to stick around. But I was never poor, because in my mind, I never accepted that as my identity. Broke was where I was. Poor is who some people decide to become, and there's the difference. See, broke is a passing state. It means you're temporarily out of money. It might be because of a job loss, a mistake, a rough month, or maybe life just hit hard, and that's okay. Broke can be fixed. But poor is when you've accepted struggle as your story. It's when you start believing that wealth belongs to other people, not you. That comfort, freedom, options are for them, not for you. Poor is when you stop reaching and start resenting. Let me tell you a story. I once met a young man full of energy, bright-eyed, hard-working, but he constantly talked like life was against him. I'll never get ahead. People like me don't get rich. Money's not for folks like us. I told him, son, you've got more opportunity than most people dreamed of 50 years ago. But none of that matters if your mind's already bankrupt. Because here's the truth. The thoughts you plant today are the life you harvest tomorrow. When someone wins the lottery and loses it all within a year, people say, how did that happen? I'll tell you how. Their bank account changed, but their mindset didn't. They thought like a poor person with a rich person's wallet. And that's a dangerous combination. You can pour wealth into someone, but if they haven't changed the way they think, the way they see responsibility, risk, growth, patience, that money will vanish like mist in the morning. So if you're broke, that's fine. That's reality. But don't get comfortable. Don't decorate it. Don't build your identity around it. Instead, start feeding your mind new thoughts. Start speaking differently. Start seeing yourself as someone capable, someone in progress. Because wealth doesn't begin in the bank, it begins in your belief. Okay? You've got to upgrade your philosophy before you upgrade your income. Or else when the money comes, it'll slip through your hands like water. But when your mindset is strong, even small income starts growing. So stop asking, how do I make more? Start asking, how do I think better? Because no amount of income will ever be enough if your mindset keeps finding ways to stay poor. Let me offer you a perspective that might just change the way you walk into the world tomorrow. Money is not a pie. It's not something that when one person takes a slice, there's less left for everyone else. That's scarcity thinking, and it's one of the most dangerous thought patterns you can carry. Scarcity thinking shrinks your potential. It closes your fists. It tightens your vision. It makes you believe you must protect what you have because there's never going to be more. But let me ask you, when was the last time you saw a successful farmer try to protect his seeds by locking them away in a vault? No, he plants them. Why? Because he understands nature. He understands the law of return. That what you plant multiplies, what you give with intention grows, and what you hold back in fear dies in your hand. Money is a garden, not a pie. It expands with the right care, the right effort, the right belief. Now, I've watched people cling to their last few dollars, not because they didn't need them, but because they were ruled by fear. They wouldn't invest in learning, wouldn't give even $1 in generosity, wouldn't explore new opportunities, and then they wondered why nothing grew. Scarcity turns your entire life into a defense strategy. You're always holding back, always hesitating, always waiting. And let me tell you, that's no way to build wealth. That's just surviving barely. I remember once being offered a chance to attend a seminar. At the time, I didn't have much, but I had a decision. Do I cling to what's left in my pocket, or do I plant it in my future? I said yes. I showed up. And that single decision expanded my mindset more than anything I'd read in a year. You've got to understand, the wealthy don't act out of fear of losing, they act from belief in growing. That's abundance. Abundance thinkers don't wait for certainty, they move with clarity. They don't say, if I give, I'll have less. They say, if I give wisely, I'll build more. They don't hoard, they invest. They don't hesitate, they explore. And that's the key difference. Scarcity says, protect. Abundance says, plant. So if you've been thinking, I can't afford to invest in myself, or I need to hold on to this just in case, ask yourself, are you protecting seeds that were meant to grow? Because wealth doesn't grow in closed hands. It grows in open minds. If you want more, start acting like someone who knows it can be created. Because once you believe in abundance, you'll stop fearing loss and start multiplying what's possible. Let me be honest with you. Debt is one of the most misunderstood tools in all of personal finance. I've heard people say debt is evil. Avoid it like the plague. And on the other side, I've seen people jump into debt like it's a shortcut to riches. Both are wrong. Because debt, just like a hammer, a knife, or fire, isn't good or bad. It's neutral. It's a tool. But like any tool, if you don't know how to handle it, it can build something or it can break you. Poor thinkers fear debt without understanding it. Wealthy thinkers study it. They respect it. They don't run from it, but they don't play with it either. They use it with precision. They've learned that bad debt is what you use to impress others a car you can't afford, a gadget you don't need, a vacation you'll be paying off for a year. That kind of debt is like sugar. It feels good now, but costs you later. I remember talking to a young man who had 5 credit cards, all maxed out. He said, I just wanted to treat myself. But there's a difference between treating yourself and tricking yourself. And the trick is this. You're borrowing from your future to fund your present. If that future isn't going to be more valuable because of that decision, then that debt is a trap. Period. Now, wealthy thinkers, they think differently. They don't borrow to impress, they borrow to increase. They use debt to acquire things that produce, not things that vanish. A business loan to expand operations. A mortgage on a rental property that pays for itself. Capital to scale an asset that creates passive income. That's smart debt. That's using other people's money to build something real. But make no mistake, they didn't start there. They first mastered discipline. Because if you can't manage $500 wisely, you have no business managing $50,000 in borrowed money. That's like handing a chainsaw to someone who's never chopped wood. Before you use a tool, learn the skill. Before you use leverage, build character. See, financial discipline is what makes debt serve you, not enslave you. If you've got debt now, don't beat yourself up. Face it. Make a plan. Cut out the fluff. Attack the high-interest stuff first. Learn from it. And then, when you're ready, and only then, use debt like a builder uses scaffolding. Not to decorate, to construct. So, stop treating debt like a monster under the bed. It's just a tool. But if you don't learn how to handle it, it will handle you. Everyone talks about freedom like it's a dream, and it is. But too many treat it like a lottery ticket instead of what it really is, a reward. Financial freedom isn't handed out, it's earned. And it's not earned in big dramatic moments. It's built quietly over time in the small decisions. The difference between those who get free and those who stay stuck isn't intelligence. It's not even luck, it's discipline. Daily, quiet, boring, consistent discipline. Discipline is the bridge between intention and reality. It's what takes the dream from the clouds and brings it down into your hands. See, everyone wants to be financially free. Everyone wants to wake up without worrying about bills, to spend time with their family without checking the clock, to take a trip, not because they're running away from stress, but because they earned the right to enjoy life. That's a beautiful dream. But the question is, what price are you willing to pay for it? I'll tell you the price. It's saying no to things that don't serve you. It's saying not yet to the impulse. It's choosing a book over a binge, a savings account over the sale, an investment over instant gratification. And let me tell you, it's not always exciting. Nobody claps when you skip the unnecessary dinner out or transfer $50 into your investment fund. But those quiet choices, they're the bricks of your financial future. I remember when I was first learning discipline with money. It wasn't easy. I saw friends upgrading their cars, buying things they couldn't afford, living in the moment. And I was reading books, reviewing budgets, tracking every dollar. At times it felt like I was behind, but then a few years passed, and guess what? I wasn't behind, I was free. And they were trapped not by enemies, but by choices, by habits, by undisciplined living. You have to fall in love with the process of discipline, because once you do, you stop feeling like you're sacrificing and you start realizing you're building. Every time you say no to something small, you're saying yes to something greater. You're no longer a prisoner of your impulses. You become the architect of your life. Discipline isn't punishment. It's protection. It protects your dreams from being hijacked by temporary emotions. It protects your future from being sold for today's pleasure. And most of all, it protects your freedom not just for you, but for those who follow your example. So if you're serious about financial freedom, stop asking for shortcuts and start committing to disciplines. Because when the excitement fades, when motivation runs out, it's discipline that gets you across the bridge. If you plant a seed in fertile soil, give it sunlight, water it consistently, and protect it from weeds it grows. But take that same seed, drop it into a toxic swamp, and even with all its potential, it will rot. Now, let me ask you, what kind of soil are you planting your financial mindset in? Most people never stop to audit their environment. They watch their spending, but not their surroundings. They track their expenses, but not their conversations. And yet, it's your environment, your friends, your family, your media, your mentors that shapes your financial psychology more than almost anything else. It's not neutral. It's either nurturing your growth or it's poisoning it. See, if you're surrounded by people who treat money like a curse, who mock ambition, who think investing is only for those rich folks, then every step forward feels like swimming against the current. You start doubting yourself. You hesitate. You shrink your dreams just to fit into their comfort zones. I've seen it happen 1,000 times. Good people, smart people, but stuck. Not because they lack ability, but because they're growing in the wrong soil. I remember a season in my own life when I was surrounded by people who always had an excuse. The system is rigged. You can't get ahead unless you cheat. Might as well enjoy. Life savings are for suckers. And I believed it until I met a man who challenged that entire worldview. He didn't just hand me a book, he handed me a mirror. And what I saw shocked me. I wasn't broke because of my paycheck, I was broke because of my thinking. And my thinking was a product of my environment. That was the wake-up call. I started being intentional with who I spent time with. I didn't cut everyone out, but I stopped giving the negative voices so much influence. I surrounded myself with people who talked about growth, discipline, strategy, and vision. People who didn't just make money, they respected it, learned from it, used it with purpose. And something changed. Not overnight, but gradually my mindset shifted. And when your mindset shifts, your habits follow. And when your habits change, so does your bank account. So, here's what I'll tell you. Audit your environment like you audit your spending. Ask yourself, who am I listening to daily? Because those voices become your inner voice. If you want to be wealthy, surround yourself with wealth-minded people, not just rich in money, but rich in discipline, principles, and purpose. Your future doesn't just depend on what you do, it depends on where you grow. So plant yourself in soil that supports your dreams, not poisons them. That decision alone can change everything. Most people have goals. I want to be rich someday. I want to retire early. I want to own my own business. And that's fine. Goals are a great start. But here's the problem. Goals can change depending on your mood. You feel good, you raise the bar. You feel tired, you lower it. You have a bad day, and suddenly the dream gets postponed. That's why I've always believed that while goals can inspire you, it's your standards that truly transform you. Let me say that again. Goals are hopes, standards are habits. See, a person with goals says, I want to save money this year. A person with standards says, I save 10% of every dollar I earn, no excuses, no exceptions. One is optional. The other is identity. Goals give you direction, but standards create momentum. I remember when I was young and first starting out, I set a goal to become financially independent. I wrote it down. I repeated it. I got excited. But here's what I noticed I'd do well for a few weeks, and then I'd drift. Spend a little more. Skip a book I said I'd read. Postpone setting up that investment account. Then one day someone asked me a question that stopped me cold. He said, what are your non-negotiables? I said, what do you mean? He replied, everyone says they want to succeed, but very few decide what lines they'll never cross. What are your minimums? And that's when it clicked. I didn't just need bigger dreams, I needed firmer rules for myself. So I made a shift. I decided on minimum savings, minimum daily reading, minimum weekly planning, minimum monthly learning. I stopped waiting to feel like it. I let my standards take over where motivation failed. Let me give you an example. If you set a goal to read 12 books a year, that's nice. But if you raise your standard to, I read 10 pages every day, now you've got structure. And structure builds results. Want to invest more? Don't set a goal to try harder. Set a rule. Every time money comes in, 10% gets invested first. You see the difference? A goal waits. A standard acts. And here's the powerful part. Once you raise your standards, your life has to rise to meet them. Your income rises. Your mindset sharpens. Your confidence grows. Not because of luck, but because you stopped negotiating with your own excuses. If you're serious about wealth, don't just dream about what you want. Decide what you will never again tolerate. Create standards that demand discipline, not just desire. Because when your standards rise, your results have no choice but to follow. Every person you meet, whether they're broke or wealthy, is living out a financial philosophy. They might not know it, they might not have written it down, But make no mistake, it's there. And your job, if you want to change your future, is to become aware of yours. Let me tell you what I learned early on. Money doesn't just follow effort, it follows philosophy. Two people can work the same hours, earn the same paycheck, and yet one ends up with a future and the other ends up with regret. Why? Philosophy. See, spend now, worry later is a philosophy. So is easy come, easy go. So is life short by the shoes. Now these aren't just catchy slogans. They're operating systems. Quietly, they run in the background of your decisions, shaping what you do with every dollar, and eventually, they shape your life. I remember a man who told me, I just can't seem to get ahead. I asked him a simple question, what's your philosophy about money? He looked puzzled. What do you mean? I said, do you believe money is a tool or a burden? Do you think saving is wise, or is it something only rich people do? When you get paid, what's your first move? Spend, save, invest, or ignore? And after a long pause, he said, I guess I've never really thought about it. And I said, that's the problem right there. You've never thought about your thinking. That's the trap most people fall into. They borrow philosophies from television, from peers, from people who don't have the results they want, and then they wonder why they end up stuck. But the truth is this, if you want to build wealth, you must adopt a philosophy that aligns with that goal. Not tomorrow, now. For me, I chose plant in the spring, harvest in the fall. That's a philosophy. It means I invest today so I can enjoy tomorrow. I live below my means. I pay myself first. I learn before I leap. And because I live by that philosophy, not just once in a while, but consistently becomes a part of who I am. And eventually, it becomes the life I live. So I ask you, what's your philosophy? Have you chosen it intentionally, or are you drifting with the tide? Don't wait for circumstances to define it. Define it yourself. Write it down. Live by it. Teach it to your kids. Because while motivation might get you started, it's philosophy that determines where you end up. Your bank account is a reflection of your philosophy in action. Your choices, your priorities, your patterns, they all stem from what you believe about money. So believe wisely, because your future is not just shaped by what you earn. It's shaped by what you believe is worth doing with what you earn. And that, my friend, is where wealth truly begins. You've listened patiently, you've reflected deeply, and now the moment has come. The moment we draw the line between who you've been and who you're becoming. Because after all this talk about wealth, mindset, philosophy, and discipline, let me tell you one final truth. Nothing changes until you change. The world doesn't need another dreamer. It needs another doer. And the wealth you seek won't come just because you've heard the right word set. Will come when you begin to live by the right principles, the ones we've talked about today. You see, wealth isn't something you pursue, it's something you attract by the person you become. And becoming that person takes decision. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now, this is your chance to stop being a victim of your habits and become the architect of your future. Maybe you've failed in the past. Maybe you've been living paycheck to paycheck. Maybe you've made decisions you're not proud of. That's fine. You don't need a perfect history to create a powerful destiny. What you need is to take ownership, responsibility, to stop waiting for a lucky break and start making better choices daily, intentionally, consistently. You've now seen the mindset of the wealthy. They don't wait for motivation. They live by standards. They don't panic in crisis. They trust in process. They don't serve money, they make money serve them. And that mindset is available to you, not after a raise, not when the economy improves. Now, so here's what I want you to do. Don't just leave this message feeling inspired. Take a step, any step. Start with one action. Track your expenses tonight. Read one chapter of a financial book tomorrow. Set up a savings transfer before the end of the week. Schedule that conversation with your spouse or your children. Pick the weakest area of your finances and commit to strengthening it for 7 days. That's how momentum begins. Not in a leap, in a shift. You may not be able to build wealth overnight, but you can build character overnight. And when you start showing up with more discipline, more clarity, more consistency, you'll start attracting the opportunities you used to miss. And one day, not too far from now, you'll look back and realize you didn't just change your money, you changed your life. And finally, let me say this. The purpose of wealth isn't just comfort, it's contribution. The more you grow, the more you can give to your family, your community, your future. So build wisely, think deeply, live intentionally. Because at the end of the day, success is never an accident, it's always a decision. And now the next decision is yours.